in a study of 400 college freshmen given a listening test at the start of their semester, those who scored a C or less were on academic probation, and actually that turned out to be more than 50% were on academic probation. Only 4% of the population in that study got high scores. So what are we talking about in this screencast? We're talking about listening competence. And so let's see if we can get this into full screen mode. Come on, there we go. Let's allow it. Let's talk about some different types of listening and how to do it competently. First is active listening. Active listening is really relational listening. It happens in 3 parts. First is paraphrasing. What you want to do is you want to put in your own words what you hear the speaker saying. You can also look at the meta communication. That's what are they not saying? The conditions of the room or what's happening around the communication. The second thing with active listening is you mention the feelings of the speaker. If you notice, I put empathic listening, noticing how the person is emotionally. And the third thing is asking a question to keep the focus on the speaker. So really, again, this is an other-oriented listening behavior that you're really putting words into your own words, paraphrasing, noticing the feelings of the speaker, and asking questions. And you see my don'ts. What you're not doing in active listening is giving advice, judging, or turning the focus onto you. Some other things competent listeners ask themselves is, what are my goals when I listen in this context? You can think about the 2 types of context that you might have would be professional and relational. And so what are my goals in listening in this context? And how does my message connect with me? Maybe this will help you remember if you can make some connections to yourself. But you might not state what those are. And you might, again, if you refer back to active listening, you're asking questions about what the speaker's saying. So, and what style is called for in this situation. So we're thinking about styles of listening, and you can self-reflect on your listening and when you self-reflect, how are you doing? Am I listening in this class at all, or am I not? Am I doing great? And reinforce the positives when you listen well. Keep going. Backchanneling cues. Backchanneling cues are any verbal or mostly non-verbal signals that we give to the speaker that indicate we're listening. Eye contact is a big part of backchanneling cues. The burden of eye contact in a person in a person-to-person or interpersonal interaction generally relies on the listener. So the burden of eye contact falls on the listener to lock eyes, nod, gestures of yes or no, smiling, leaning in, showing interest non-verbally. You might even touch the shoulder of someone or just to really keep an other orientation and demonstrate these types of cues. Again, backchanneling cues, mostly non-verbal. Even things like, yeah, cool, are backchanneling cues that are verbal, but also, again, keeping the emphasis on the speaker. So next is classroom listening. Well, you said that 50% of those 400 college freshmen were on academic probation. Ouch. We also know that the failure rate for freshmen in college is about the same, that it's about 50% of all starting freshmen flunk out. Ouch. So listening in the classroom is critical. And some tips here would be, number 1, when you enter in the class, prepare yourself to listen. Prepare yourself that you're going to take notes. Pull out your notebook. Use the 2-column note system where you're writing down everything as much as you can, but understanding the information in the lecture and worrying about separating main ideas and details later. But really learning that 2-column note system, which I'm not going to talk about a lot in great detail here. If you want to know more about two-column notes, come see me, and I'll give you an education on them and how elaborate they can be to help you learn. Prepare to listen, though, and follow the points and the subpoints. The other ones I like is act the part. So in act the part, oh, don't do that, means backchanneling cues. Demonstrate and create a perception of yourself in the minds of others that you're listening. Irving Goffman used to always say that communication is a performance. You, in any context, you act out the performance needed in that context. So what does it look like when students listen in class? They're head nodding, they're looking at the professor, they're showing a face of curiosity, they're taking notes, and they really look actively engaged for the entire class. Proximity and immediacy kind of follow along this with this idea of acting the part, which means sit near the professor. Again, that's forming a perception. Students that sit close to the professor generally do better in the course. And also the idea acting the part is creating immediacy. The professor and the class is the most immediate and important thing in front of me, and that's where I am most mindful. And so that's immediacy. Asking questions, it's okay not to understand and ask questions. Things that you might ask are, you could ask for examples, or you could say, could you please define that? Or could you explain that more or elaborate on? And asking specific questions is really good. Based on this stuff, what kind of challenges do you face in the classroom? What are your challenges? You can think about that one. Let's see if we can go to the next. We got one right here. Yes. So always contextualize your listening. Am I listening relationally, where I'm trying to really focus on a friendship and build a friendship, and so I'm being other-oriented? Really important to recognize that context of relational listening. If it's professional listening, you're trying to get the information and understand the message, where paraphrasing can be really good. But relational listening and empathic listening always comes into both of these, which is, how's the speaker feeling? Can you put yourself in their shoes? Can you recognize the context and the emotions of the speaker? Mirroring is another way we do that. The idea of mirroring is basically when we replicate the nonverbal cues of the speaker. So you see therapists will model the same behaviors nonverbally that their clients model, and it helps to, again, create immediacy and commonality, and helps to create a great dialogue. There's also something called listening leaders. If you Google that, listening leaders, there's a good Forbes article, but that's an organization that the CPL is a certified listening professional, where you can actually get certified in listening competence and become a professional trainer in listening. So I hope this got you thinking about your own listening and your listening competence. And